stakeholders in Afghanistan, many looking at Pakistan as to what is the role they're going to play. I spoke a while ago with the former ambassador of Canada to Afghanistan, Chris Alexander, and this is what he had to say on what is at stake in this quest for peace in Afghanistan and the future of the women of Afghanistan. Listen in. Even as negotiations continue as to where is Afghanistan headed, the Afghan peace talks in process, and should the Taliban be mainstreamed? I'm being joined by Christopher Alexander, a former diplomat from Canada, also a politician now, was an MP and served as a minister in the Canadian government, but a completely and true Afghan hand when it comes to having served in Afghanistan and understanding the geopolitics and the landscape of Afghanistan. Many thanks for joining us here on India Today, Chris. Beginning with the negotiations and Taliban talks, where do you see Taliban in the entire structure of stability in Afghanistan and in the region?
Well, they've been the opposite of a force for stability. In my time in Afghanistan, back starting in 2003, things were relatively peaceful, but we saw a military campaign begin slowly with attacks on aid workers and then achieve larger scale with attacks on NATO forces and become a full-blown war in subsequent years. And the Taliban have been central to that with their allies, Al-Qaeda, the Haqqani group, parts of the Hikmatyar movement. And they have made life miserable for Afghans. They've made that conflict for the last 20 years.
Could you enlighten us with what was Pakistan really up to during your stint in Afghanistan, and has Pakistan's modus operandi when it comes to dealing with terror networks and with the Taliban in Afghanistan changed in the recent years?
No, it has not changed. They're doing what they have always done, which is to back these proxy forces to try to subjugate the neighboring country of Afghanistan, just as they prosecute such proxy war campaigns in Kashmir and in other parts of South Asia.
Why is it then that America, every time you see a change in administration, you see the kind of importance that Pakistan is given in talking about there can be no peace in Afghanistan without Pakistan, and therefore making it an indispensable force and an indispensable country?
Well, I think the United States under those successive administrations is guilty of wishful thinking. There are many in Washington who remember the 1980s and the partnership that they think brought down the Soviet Union. I do not think that despite all their lobbying, all the inertia in US policy to date, that Pakistan's and specifically the ISI stock is very high in Washington right now. And I do see impatience growing, not just in the United States, in Europe, in Japan, in Canada, elsewhere, and in the neighborhood. There are really only two countries that have backed the Taliban to any large extent. One is Pakistan, the main stakeholder. In a smaller way, Iran has done that as well. And you mentioned earlier, Russia's positioning itself as an ally to some extent with Islamabad, simply to spite the United States. They don't really want the Taliban to come back to power. Everyone else wants this to end. That goodwill, that political capital needs to be mobilized to take this final step, which is ensuring that Pakistan ends its proxy war. It's as simple as that.
We know that this has been a long drawn war. It needs to end. But how does one then balance allowing the Taliban into Afghanistan, where they had fought and put women out of the political structure, the academic structure, and then if they return and see these women, what happens to their future?
And given the legacy of the Taliban and of so many decades of war, women have to advance further and faster for the country to succeed. But that will only happen if the country is free from fear and violence. And so here the key issue is a ceasefire. The key issue is disarming the Taliban, preventing them from threatening state institutions, civil society leaders, journalists. You saw 3 women journalists killed in Jalalabad, assassinated in Jalalabad recently. That's terrifying for anyone who works in that country, in that field and in other fields. It has to be a ceasefire that becomes the gateway to a broader settlement. And we know that the Taliban sitting in Doha will not be the ones deciding whether to stop fighting. The people deciding whether to stop fighting will be General Bajwa, his ISI, DG ISI, and the brigadiers, colonels, and other officers right down to subaltern level in Directorate S, which is responsible for this covert proxy war.
On that really positive note, and hoping that there is peace in Afghanistan, many thanks for joining us here on India Today. There is Christopher Alexander, former diplomat, served in Afghanistan, now a politician and former MP in Canada. Many thanks for joining us here on India Today.
Hi everyone, Preeti Chaudhary here. Hope you like this video. For latest news and analysis, like and subscribe to the India Today YouTube channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated. Thank you for watching.